people that have never been that interested in Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other cryptos, their first taste of crypto is in meme coins. And I think the main reason why is because the cost of living in most places around the world has gone up dramatically. So there are people living paycheck to paycheck. What that means is that people are much more inclined to see it as gambling. What I see the meme coins as is an online casino. So they don't have any use cases, but what they do have behind it is an extremely strong communities.
As the market tumbles, the cryptocurrency space is in turmoil. Everybody's panicking, running for the hills. Everybody on eToro seems to want to be selling the stock market. Altcoin season seems to be over. Bitcoin doesn't exist anymore. Ethereum has crashed and it will never come back. Everybody's panicking. Everybody's freaking out, but the reality is completely different. We have here Steven, or the approachable investor as some people call him, or people know him for his podcast, Achieving Alpha. Yes, that's right, Steven. He's investing since 2016, popular investor since 2020, and he's going to talk to us about what projects he's looking at, what we're going to see in the near future. Hopefully, we can learn something. Hopefully, we can make some money. That would be even better. Check out his portfolio. It's in the link below, but we're going to have a discussion. Today, we're going to be talking about crypto projects. What are the important ones and what should we be paying attention? Taking away the innovation versus the total smoke and snake salesmen in the space. We're going to talk about the risks, the challenges, and the outlook in the market. Last but not least, we're going to talk about investor sentiment and what consideration he's making in his own portfolio so you can learn. Because the beauty of eToro is that you can actually see what people are trading. Put your money where your mouth is. Welcome, Steven.
Welcome, Nestor. Thank you very much for inviting me on. I'm really looking forward today to chatting with you more about the market. As you said, everybody else is panicking, but I'm staying calm. I think I've been in crypto for long enough now to know when you need to stay calm and when you need to look forward.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because in moments like this, when the market is panicking, you know, usually you should be very, very happy when markets get like this because you're starting to set your targets. Your price targets should already be set. You should already know exactly what projects you want to get into, what companies you want to buy. As the market tumbles, many people are selling at discount prices, and nobody loves more a Black Friday deal than myself. You know. So yeah. In this is the case in crypto right now, and it seems in the whole market. You know, as Trump sort of like scares the market into submission, we are getting to a point where a lot of companies are starting to look appealing. You know, yeah. So let's get started. So we need to start the program by talking about the granddaddy of all of the cryptocurrencies, and we're talking about Mr. Satoshi Nakamoto. We're talking about Mr. Bitcoin. What are your thoughts?
So my thoughts on Bitcoin is we're still in a bull market. I think the way that Bitcoin works is it usually works in 4-year cycles, which are around the Bitcoin halving. And after the Bitcoin halving, what you see is that the miner rewards are halved. So it means that less Bitcoin go into new circulation through the miners. And obviously there's only a 21 million number of Bitcoins that will ever be mined. So I think we're in a really good position with Bitcoin. The main thing about Bitcoin is when we go through these cycles, so the last halving was in May last year. And usually what we see is after the Bitcoin halving, usually have a few months play out. And then what you do is you get a kind of a supply scarcity that comes in. And what you've got to remember with Bitcoin is there's a lot of long-term holders. So myself, I've been in Bitcoin since about 2016, but there are a lot of people that have been in even longer to Bitcoin, and they're not selling their coins because things have gone up slightly. So you get that scarcity, and what happens is you have less and less on the market. And what we've seen last year is we've seen the approval of Bitcoin spot ETFs. And that was a massive thing, actually. And that was one of the biggest launches in history. And what that's allowed the market to do is it's allowed institutional investors, so people that would never be involved in Bitcoin previously, they just wouldn't have had the tools, the rails, the assets to be able to get into Bitcoin. Now they're able to do it very simply through the Bitcoin ETFs. And those are physically backed. So that means that every time you buy Bitcoin from BlackRock or Fidelity, etc., then it will go straight into they will have to buy the equivalent amount of Bitcoin. So what that done is that caused a supply shortage, and we saw the price increase a lot in Bitcoin going into the end of 2024 into early 2025. So obviously that worked its way through. So there was a lot of inflows into Bitcoin. And then what we've seen in 2025 is around a new narrative around nation states buying Bitcoin. So that is a massive thing. We obviously saw Donald Trump on the campaign trail. He said that he wanted to set up a strategic Bitcoin reserve. That was really important for the markets. We saw the price drive up. And obviously, when he's now taken over, he has again announced that he's going to set up the strategic Bitcoin reserve and Bitcoin and altcoin stockpile. And I'll explain a little bit about that detail later, because that is slightly different to the Bitcoin strategic reserve. And one thing to note is he can actually put in place that at the moment in terms of the strategic reserve and keeping the coins that they might have confiscated from previous busts before, Silk Road and some other stuff that they acquired coins. But they're not able to actually buy any Bitcoin yet, anything that's going to cost the taxpayer money. So I think what we've seen a bit of a dip, because I think you know what it's like on X and other social media. People get very excited, and the strategic reserve, there's a bill in place as well that potentially US will buy 1 million Bitcoin over a 5-year period. But that hasn't been approved yet. So all of that has got to work its way through. So there's a Bitcoin committee now in the US government. And I think the markets have to be patient, because it's not something that the government can just buy 1 million Bitcoin straight off the bat without approvals from Congress, etc. So I do expect them to be able to buy Bitcoin sometime in 2025, but it might take a little bit of time. But I think the markets have just come to grips with that a bit, that it's not going to be immediate, and we've seen this pullback. But it's very normal in these Bitcoin cycles to have these pullbacks. So in a normal Bitcoin bull market in the 4-year cycle, we usually see about 5 to 7, 20, 25% drawdowns from the highs. So it's very normal to have these types of pullbacks, even in a bull market. So I don't think it's over. I think it's just pause. And also, just I want to add on to that as well, is that the Bitcoin cycle does overlap a lot with the liquidity cycle, in terms of similar to the stock market, etc. The more liquidity is in the market, the more likely it is that Bitcoin's going to go up, because as they print more and more money, it means hard assets generally rise in price. Yeah. So, and that also links with the 4-year presidential cycle as well. And just I don't know if it's coincidental or not, but the Bitcoin cycle, stock cycle, and also the election cycle, is basically at the same time. So they all overlap.
No, I get you. No, for sure. I saw a very interesting chart, which is just like the M2 money supply, the global money supply is expected to increase in 2025, with Europe increasing spending and potentially other countries having to increase spending in defense and many other sectors as well. We're gonna see that money supply continue to increase, and that's the defense that I think Bitcoin provides in this case, right?
It is, yeah, it is. So I'd say people like to correlate Bitcoin against the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ, and they say, well, the NASDAQ has gone down and Bitcoin's gone down, so therefore it's correlated. But I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think there are overlaps, because if there's a lack of liquidity in the market, that does affect the Nasdaq as well as it affects Bitcoin. But if you look at the correlations of the charts, you'll see the biggest correlation is the global M2 supply and the liquidity cycle. They're almost identical. There's a bit of a lag between them, but they're almost identical in pattern.
Okay. Now taking you a little bit out of the sort of like granddaddy and going into the prince of Bitcoin. That's how we like to call it in the channel. We're talking about Ethereum in this case. And like in this case, I want to understand, right? Because the thing is Ethereum hasn't behaved anything close to what it hasn't been the same behavior as previous cycles. And this is something that many people are asking is like, when are we going to see the rally? When are we going to see the rally? A lot of people are also saying that the altcoin season does not start until Ethereum pumps. Right, but it seems that Solana might have taken the hat, maybe the job of Ethereum in this case, at least for this altcoin season rally, right? Because we did see euphoria, we did see crazy moves in altcoins. But what are your thoughts on Ethereum? Let's just first Ethereum, and then we'll touch on Solana, right?
Yeah, sure. So Ethereum's had a bit of a difficult time as of late. I do hold quite a significant amount of Ethereum as well. But it has been a slightly disappointing bull market so far for Ethereum. Hasn't gone up as much as it would have in previous cycles. So what are the reasons why it hasn't gone up with previous cycles? Well, I think one of them is the fact that obviously Solana's the new kid on the block. We'll keep talking about Ethereum, but it is very important to know that Solana is taking up some of the market share that Ethereum would have had previously. So Ethereum's biggest advantage is it has the most amount of developers in the space. Yeah. So they have those network effects of having some of the greatest minds building projects on Ethereum. Some of those have gone over to Solana now, but they still have the biggest network base that there are. Another advantage they have is they also have an Ethereum ETF, which was approved also last year. And I think that's got a bit of a bad rap as well, because I think people are comparing it to Bitcoin and it doesn't have the same purpose, doesn't have the same reason to purchase as you would for Bitcoin, right? So it was still a very incredibly successful launch, but it paled compared with the Bitcoin launch, right? So again, another thing about Ethereum, while I think it's struggling over its competitors like Solana, is that you're seeing a lot of scalability issues. So Ethereum is very slow in building their projects. It took a long time for it to go from proof of work over to proof of stake. And that took a long time. And also they were expected to put in some scalability fixes as well into the network. They were going to put in some different things such as sharding, which sharding is a way of speeding up the blockchain by fragmenting the blockchains into small pieces. That's probably the easiest way to explain it. And that's taken a long time for them to develop. And what we've seen, because the network is extremely slow, we've seen really high fees, on-chain fees. And when you have big on-chain fees, it discourages you from building on that network, right?
Or adoption too.
And adoption. Yeah. So for example, if I want to send you some Ethereum now, it's going to be very expensive for me to send you over some Ethereum, like especially on smaller payments. You might still do it on larger payments, but on smaller payments, I'm probably not going to send you Ethereum. I'm probably going to ask you if you accept something else, right? And also on chain fees. So, for example, Ethereum aren't as big on these meme coins, etc., because the fees are too expensive or to create a new coin and to work on chain like that. So. We've seen some delays on there. We've also seen some DeFi projects, etc., decentralized finance projects that have gone over to Solana and to other chains, SUI and some other chains as well. And that's just led to a bit of a dampening feeling on Ethereum. So I don't think Ethereum's dead. I don't think Solana is going to overtake Ethereum market cap anytime soon. But those are just some of the things why I think Ethereum has lost some of its market cap. But it's going to take a long time to catch the network effects that Ethereum has.
So let me.
Those
Sorry.
those institutional tools as well. Some of the other blockchains are also have applications in for ETFs as well, but Ethereum's is already approved.
So let me ask you this one question that I have, right? And the thing is like in my and this is like sort of my dumbness kind of coming in, and my lack of my ignorance kind of maybe taking center stage in this case. But my question is this, right? Like, what is the main use of Ethereum right now, right? So we have Bitcoin that is like potentially store of value, potentially like, we have this sort of like inflation and the devaluing of money, and this sort of like democratization of the ledger book that I'm fully backing in when it comes to Bitcoin. But when it comes to Ethereum, right? It's like the thing I know about Ethereum is that, okay, we can buy smart contracts and we can buy NFTs, which allows me to just be the owner of a link in chain, right? But what is the, like, if Ethereum had to have a rebranding, what would you say the purpose of Ethereum is, right?
Really good question. So I think it is the Internet of computers, and that sounds like a bit of jargon, which it is. But one of the things with Ethereum is that you can't really call it a store of value. You can't really call it money. Because there is some decentralized elements, but there's still a Ethereum foundation and lots of other things which takes away from its decentralization. It was also supposed to be deflationary as well, as they went from proof of work to proof of stake. Yeah, and that's not been the case. It started off being quite deflationary, but it's not particularly deflationary anymore. So you can't really call it a store of value, in my opinion. The fact that they've got so many developers and that they're so trusted, that they've been out there for a long time, and that they've very rarely had problems with the blockchain that hasn't gone down. Solana has been moving really fast, right? But they've also been breaking things at the same time, right? So sometimes Solana goes down. So there's that trust element with it. There's also the fact that it has a lot of developers. So with that trust element, you're probably much more likely to do things such as DeFi on Ethereum than you would be on other chains, because one, they have the most developers, they have the most products, etc. on Ethereum. But yeah, you're much more likely to do that on Ethereum, in my opinion. There are some services on Solana and some other stuff, but you've kind of got that long-term trust and decentralization of Ethereum. Other stuff, which you require things to be a bit faster, you're probably less likely to do on Ethereum. So I probably wouldn't be building games on Ethereum, like GameFi, and putting in the back rails for GameFi, for example, on Ethereum. I don't think that's a good use case of Ethereum. So what I'm trying to say is I'm still bullish on Ethereum, but what I would say is there is diminishing use cases. Okay. So unless they can increase the speed, lower the cost of transactions, etc., I think that chains such as Solana, SUI, other layer ones are likely to start to erode the market cap.
Okay, let me touch to you on another point, because you said Internet of Computers, right? But like the way that I sort of saw Ethereum was more in the sense of sort of the Internet of money. You know what I mean? And it was kind of like it was kind of like the promise that Ethereum brought to the table was the innovation, right, of money, smart contracts. I'm able to just buy a house with my Ethereum, and then it's just going to be all of my networking and all my financials and everything, which was like the idea with the NFTs. It was like all of a sudden you were the owner, and there was proof that you were the owner.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that
comes back to the trust thing that I was saying. So
yeah.
You're much more likely to implement a smart contract on Ethereum than you would be on other chains, just because of how long it's been going and how many different smart contracts it have
Yeah.
already been processed.
There seems to be this joke in the community, in the Ethereum community, that is like Ethereum is the account, like big money and accountants go to Ethereum to do their innovation,
Yeah.
and then they like the new projects. Well, we're going to talk about next, right? Because I want to get your view on Solana as well, and then potentially Cardano, and kind of understand what sort of like the innovation has been there. What have you seen there?
In which ones?
Solana.
Solana, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we compare the two, right? So Ethereum has gone very slow and methodical on trying to build up this trust in the network, right? So they haven't had any outage, they haven't had any downtime, etc. Solana, on the other hand, has been work fast and break things, right? So they've had various instances where there's been downtime on the network. Things haven't processed, etc. And at some stages, the Solana network got extremely busy, right? But from day one, they said, look, we're going to focus on being the fastest blockchain. And if we compare that again to Ethereum have had to rely on what in the industry they call layer twos, right? So layer twos are a way of working on Ethereum, but faster than the base chain can cope with. Solana, you can do it all on the base chain because it's extremely fast. It's not, the network isn't clogged, etc. Yeah. So they've been looking. I would say Solana is the eye of innovation. So I was very early in Solana, to be honest with you. So I heard a lot about Solana from the very start, and everybody was buzzing in the industry before they even released the token. So I got in very early. I think I was in 80 cents or something on Solana originally. And mainly that was because of the promise of innovation. So the innovation has been extremely fast on Solana. So you've seen many things from DeFi to GameFi. We've also seen meme coins take off like crazy on Solana in 2024. And meme coins are mostly all around the Solana network at the moment, because there's platforms such as Radium, etc., that operate on the Solana blockchain, and they allow you to be able to not only create these meme coins, but also trade them. So that's obviously been a big use cases. There's also oracles as well, which have been built on Solana, such as the Pith network and a few others. So I would say all those things that you promised, you were saying that was for Ethereum, are over on Solana right now. They don't quite have the they don't quite have the developers that Ethereum has, but that's increasing every single day, to be honest with you. So I think Solana's eating their lunch a little bit at the moment.
Okay, perfect. One thing that you mentioned, oracles. Can you just expand a little bit on that? I've never heard that. So
yeah, so it's just a way of aggregating the prices on exchanges. So, for example, Chainlink is another example of a oracle. Yeah, but Chainlink is on the Ethereum blockchain. Pith network is Solana's.
Perfect. And then let me ask you this, right? So, what do you think of the development of meme coins in the Solana? Because when you talk Solana, you got to talk about the meme coin rally, the meme coin euphoria, the Pump Fund website, right? What are your thoughts on this? Do you think we're going to see any development in the coins that are getting pumped? Or is this just a money grab?
So I have a interesting take on this, and it's kind of quite middle to central take on this, rather than being pro on it or being totally against it. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, and I'll explain a little what reason why. So the main reason why this is taken off so much is I think there's a very similar user for the meme coins as there were in the NFT craze in 2021. Yeah. So people that have never been that interested in Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other cryptos, their first taste of crypto is in meme coins, right? And why is the reason that they are like that? And I think the main reason why is because the cost of living in most places around the world has gone up dramatically. Yeah. So there are people living paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. And what that means is that people are much more inclined, if they come into the industry, to see it as a gambling. So what I
Get rich
see,
quick.
what
Yeah.
I see the meme coins as is an online casino. Yeah. So they don't have any use cases, but what they do have behind it is an extremely strong communities. And I spent a bit of time last year kind of joining some of the communities and trying to pick up the essence of what meme coins were. And they're extremely passionate about their projects. So we've got the whole kind of the meme culture that's kind of baked into the younger generations, and that's what it tends to be. They tend to be the younger generations that are involved in these meme coins, and they're very passionate. They promote the coins all over the thing, and to be honest with you, they're more like small cults. Yeah, and
It does feel like that.
the ones that do better tend to be the ones that have more cult-like qualities. So they're more just around a specific coin rather than just being invested in loads of different other ones. They put the Twitter pseudonyms around that particular meme coin. They're really strong like that. And I think people, with so many young people struggling, I think people want these moonshots. So they want the ability to be able to invest in $500, $1,000 and and make a couple of $100,000 from these meme coins. But obviously, people know that the majority of meme coins will end up at zero. There's millions of meme coins at the moment, so they're going to end up zero. But there'll be a small proportion of people that make life-changing gains. And they're going to be the ones that are thrust into the media. Those are going to be the ones that I know a friend that made a couple of $100,000 from $1,000 bet, and that's what gets thrust in the thing. And I think a lot of what happens with meme coins is a lot of people think, well, I can probably only make a 2 or 3x on Bitcoin from here. I can probably only make 5x on Ethereum, for example, 7x, 8x on Solana, that type of thing. But I can potentially make 100x on Fartcoin. Yeah, coin
or Trump coin.
Whatever it might be.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
And they go over to this, right? So bringing it back to the conversation about Solana's made it extremely easy to set up a coin. So like we could go online now and make Nesta coin in less than 5 minutes. And put it out there. Correct. And if it had enough marketing behind it and a funny enough meme, it could potentially take off, or it could go to zero. Who knows, right? But they've made it extremely easy to be able to do that, and you can do that with just maybe a couple of $1,000 behind it, right? So the barriers to entry have been dropped significantly, and there's also these exchanges. I mentioned Radium, which is one of the biggest exchanges for meme coins on Solana. So it's very easy to have a Solana wallet linked up to it and to be able to invest in these small projects. And it's extremely easy to get the liquidity on the other end to be able to cash out of these projects as well. So yeah, it's the only thing I would say about meme coins is it does a little bit tarnish the reputation of cryptos with real use cases that are trying to solve real world problems. Because if you're familiar with the industry and you understand it, right, you will say meme coins are totally different to project A, B, C, which we've been talking about, right? So it's very clear, right? But people that are not so familiar, who might be thinking, oh, I've heard about this crypto, right? And they're thinking that crypto is all Fartcoin and Shiba Inu and, all these different animal type projects, when that's just, in my opinion, the casino part of crypto.
I see. No, that's the way that I see it, and it has tarnished sort of the sort of the look of crypto a lot, because a lot of new investors go in expecting those 100x returns, and when you don't get them, you never touch investing again, right? So it does create, it has that dark side as well, right? Could you maybe make 100x? Sure. But this is money that you have to be absolutely willing to lose, right? And if you can 100x multiple times, just put $100 and see what happens, right? You could make $1 million in less time than you think. So this is where cautionary tales within crypto come in.
It's a bit like a venture fund, really.
Yeah,
it's a very high risk. It's a very high risk venture fund.
Penny stocks. It's brand new companies that get started and they're looking for funding, and you have to trust the financial team behind them.
Yeah, and all you need really, say you had a portfolio of 20 projects, for example, with small amounts of money in each one, right? All you need is 2-3 of those to really take off and get many multiples on your money, to take over all the losers, and to make it very worthwhile. So there is an approach which you can take, which is kind of more VC based, where you expect, okay, majority of these will go to zero or won't have any use cases, but the ones that do well will pay for all the losers.
Correct. Well, funny enough, when my crypto journey began, it was kind of like go into Bitcoin, buy Ethereum. Then all of a sudden you are like, oh my God, like there are some cool coins that I can go in and buy. And then you go in and explore within those coins. You go over, Coin Market Cap, page 2. Yeah. Then you start getting into the crazy projects, which can explode. Don't get me wrong. 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 20 will likely be a winner. But you're probably not going to get that. But the funny thing is like what happened to me at least was that after I lost money on the old coins, right? The money that I had left on Bitcoin and Ethereum ended up becoming the gains that now are dominating my portfolio. So my portfolio has grown 100x because of Bitcoin and Ethereum, even including the losses that I had on other crypto assets, And I think this is what happens in the crypto market and in the crypto economy as well.
Yeah.
Let me pivot a little bit now that we're talking on this, right? So you mentioned Cardano. Any other projects you want to mention really quickly before?
So every year I put together my top predictions, right, for the crypto markets and also the traditional markets, right? So my big pick for last year was a project called SUI. Yeah. And if you think back, do you remember when Facebook, or Meta as they're now known, they were going to put together a crypto project called Libra?
Yeah.
And they basically built this project, and then the government basically came in and didn't like it, and then they ended up dropping the project completely, right? But there were a lot of developers that were working on that Libra project, right? So basically there's 2 projects that have come off that Libra project originally. So there's a project called SUI and a project called Aptos. And they were both developers that were working on that Meta project previously for crypto. And they're operating on something called the Move language programming. I'm not going to go into a detail because I'm not that technical, but it's got very positive reviews by the developers that are building on these projects. So in my top 20 predictions last year, I said that SUI had just come out, I think, at that time. And I said that SUI was going to be one of the biggest gainers in 2024 and was going to work its way up the coin market cap, right? And it did. It went from in the hundreds to the top 30. So it did extremely well. I think a lot of developers are really happy with the way that they can build on SUI. Transactions are very fast. And we're also seeing really low fees in the SUI network as well. And also there was quite a lot of meme coins also built on SUI as well as some gaming projects that started to develop as well. So that was my big one for 2024. I expect that to do really, really well in 2025 as well. But another project that I think I put in my 2025 one predictions was Celestia, which is also known as, the ticker is TIA, and they have a parallel blockchain process. So again, it's a common theme, but what we're seeing is really fast transactions, low fees, good developer network tools. So that's another project that I think will do very well moving into 2025 and 2026.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome. That's good to know. Okay, that's good to know because I'm gonna ask you at the end like a quick fire round question. What are the top three projects that you recommend people start looking? But we're gonna answer that at the end. So make sure you stay. Okay. So let's now pivot a little bit. Now we've discussed most of the projects. What's the innovation in the sector? Now let's talk about sort of the risks and sort of the outlook that you have. Right. So what are the challenges in the crypto market space right now? We talked about a little bit about the meme coins being a sort of deterrent from the whole crypto space, but what else do you see? Because what other challenges do you see within the industry that are maybe flashing some yellow red lights in your panel?
Okay, so one of the things that you see in a bull market, in a bull market, what you tend to see is Bitcoin taking off first, as more and more money goes into Bitcoin. After a while, what you see is people, as I was saying earlier, start to think, well, it's run up quite a lot now. What's the chance that I get a 2x, a 3x, or 4x within this cycle, right? So what they do is they work their way out of the risk curve, down the risk curve. So then you see people going into projects which previously had always been Ethereum, but I would classify Ethereum and Solana about on the same level as that now. And then you see those large cap projects take off, and then it will filter its way out all the way down that risk curve to medium caps, small caps, nano caps, meme coins, right? So the further out you get, the more risk you take. And what happens, what the biggest risk you have is when it goes further and further out, you have much more chances of a massive crash. And the reasons why you do that is because a lot of people have more risk-taking behaviors. They're taking on much more risk. They're taking on leverage. Leverage is another bane of the crypto industry that we have, that causes lots of people infinite amounts of troubles.
And volatility too.
So what happens is you get more and more bad actors. You get people taking risks, but then you get more bad actors coming into crypto, because they say, okay, these bad actors tend to be attracted to the quickest gains and the easiest way to make money. And at the last stages of a crypto cycle, everybody's a genius, right? Like you could, it's very important to be able to choose projects for the majority of the bull market, but most of the gains come in crypto at the very end of the cycle. I'm talking the last month and a half of the cycle, right? And that's when you get really bad actors come in, try to make a quick buck. That's when we saw SAM, SBF, last crypto cycle towards the top. You see them doing some really dodgy things, and then these risk-taking behaviors affect market participants who then lose money, and then we see this downward correction. So I always think exuberance is a massive risk factor for crypto. Also, general markets, general markets crashing, and in particular, what I was saying earlier is if liquidity was drawn from the overall market, I think that would have a big effect on crypto, but especially the altcoins who really require this liquidity to be able to take off, because people have got to be able to have money. And what you see is you get investors, especially professional investors, they have their risk on buckets and their risk off buckets. And when liquidity is taken out of the market, the first thing that they sell is their risk on buckets. And they start to sell stuff and start to store cash or go into bonds or whatever it might be in order to try to preserve some of their funds. So that's another thing. Also, you see some of the decentralization sometimes moving out of crypto. So there's a lot of these projects that are being funded by VCs. VCs are venture capitalists. They're the reason why these projects are moving and why they can afford to put in grants for developers. and to get all of these developers to build the protocols is because of these VC funds. Yeah. And VC funds what they often have is they often have a lockup. Yeah. So they'll invest, let's just say, for example, they'll invest 50 million $50 million in a project at seed A, round 1, round 2, whatever it might be, right? They'll invest in that project, and then they'll have to hold the coins for a year or 6 months. Sometimes it could be a year, sometimes it could be 18 months, depends on what it's agreed at the beginning. And then after the price really takes off, they have these tokens that they often put into the market at a later stage, and then you have all of this selling pressure on these coins. And what they usually do is they usually invest in these projects towards the end of the bear market. They ride them out in the bull market and towards the middle of the bull market, and then they tend to sell them at really high prices, flood the market with tokens. And then you see these big drop down in prices. So again, it's to do with the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, but it just also tends to be the amount of time that it takes for that process to work its way in. And usually it takes about 2 years of a bull market for you to start getting those big risk factors.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so wait, let me ask you a couple of just in the comments that you said, right? So for example, the liquidity. What are your expectations in terms of liquidity for 2025, 2026?
Okay.
Do you think we're running out?
No. So I think what's quite likely to happen, and it's being kind of tried to be pushed through from Trump, is he wants to lower the interest rates, right? The Federal Reserve is obviously a neutral body. They don't answer to the president, but he has a lot of influence. Yeah. So I think he's trying to bring down inflation to a level where the Fed will be comfortable to start to drop those rates. Yeah. And his sole mission, so Donald Trump's sole mission, is to be seen as a good president. Yeah. And to have his legacy in the long run. And one of the biggest telltales of was a president successful or not is the stock market. Yeah. And then in addition to that would be obviously in crypto as well, which would have a big effect. So I think he's going to want to dump as much liquidity into the markets as possible. I think he's got a very good position at the moment because he can blame everything on Biden.
Well, he's doing it quick at the start of the term, right?
Yeah.
He waited too long last time.
Yeah. So what he can say right now, he can, like, you've seen the stock market crash a bit recently, right? Yeah. And there has been a little bit less liquidities in the market, etc. But he's able to say, because it's very early term, he's able to say, well, that's because Joe Biden effed up our country, right?
Yeah. The rhetoric has been, it's all Biden's fault. If the economy crashes, it's because he left me a mess of an economy and I'm going to fix it. Which gives me hope for the end of his presidency. But he also, I think maybe he could tumble the economy for a year, and then the next year he could try to pick it up. And then say, I am the savior,
And what's he going to do in order to boost the stock market? He's going to pump liquidity into the markets, right? And he's going to try and force them to lower interest rates.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we're going to see in the future. But they have to get inflation down to a level where the confidence is not going to spike up, which I think, as it's his sole mission, I think they'll achieve that. Whether it's done in the right way or the wrong way, for people to decide. But I think that's what's going to happen. And if that money does transfer into crypto, I think we're going to see big gains towards the end of 2025.
So is your base case scenario gains in 2025? Do you see the market going higher from here?
Yeah, I do. I think what will happen is we usually see Bitcoin hitting its peak at about 18 months after the halving. It has always done that historically in every 4-year cycle. It's almost uncanny to the week or to the month. And that tends to happen for a lot of the reasons that I explained earlier in the interview. So my base case, and it could change, but my base case is that we would see a peak in crypto prices in Q3 or Q4 2025.
Perfect.
So that's my base case.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Okay. Now let's pivot a little bit. And this is where I want to get a little bit personal, little bit in,
Go for
and
it.
it's getting so you have a lot of reach in eToro, right? You have a lot of reach. I think I think more than 500 people copy you. You're the second most copied person in Singapore, which is, fantastic feat.
Thank you.
And also your following seems to be your community seems to be very engaging with you, right?
Yep.
So I'm guessing a lot of people are wondering in this case, and, I'll give you the video to post for you as well on this, but my question is like, what are you doing? So what do you see people talking about within your community? What are the biggest comments that you're getting? How are your copiers acting? And what are you doing within your portfolio this year during this downturn in order to take advantage of this, right?
Sure. Okay, so in terms of my portfolio, what I tend to do is I tend to get involved in projects. Generally in the bear markets, I'm a big accumulator of crypto, right? And what I try to do is I try to use the bear market as a way to accumulate more Bitcoin, right? And then as the cycle plays out, then I will go more and more into altcoins. And then as altcoins start to do really well, then what I do is I start to take some profits as they go up. So the way I see it, like a lot of people, as the price goes up, they think, oh, right, I've got to get involved because there's momentum behind it, etc. I see more risk the higher the price is. Yeah.
Correct.
So I'm constantly, when things are near the top, so give you an example, in 2021, in the last Q3, Q4, I was trimming my altcoin positions quite significantly. And I'll probably do that again in this cycle as well. So I see more risk the higher the prices are, and the deeper we are into this 4-year cycle. Yeah, it's more of a risk. What I see a lot of from not just copiers, but just maybe the eToro community, and for people that are kind of new to crypto, they don't see opportunity when the prices are going down, because I think for a lot of people, it's a very long stage, the crypto cycle. So the bear markets last a very long time. The bull markets are very much up and down, but it's very short periods of time where they shoot up to these levels that they shoot up to. So in terms of time, they feel like they're down for longer than they're up, if you understand what I mean. And I think people don't necessarily see opportunity when prices go down. So what I think you should do is you should be accumulating bear markets consistently, right? Don't try and catch the bottoms. You don't know what the bottoms are going to be, but you have a fair understanding that things are at good value, right? And then, but if you are to invest in bull markets, you should invest in the dips. So, for example, now there's been a fairly significant dip in both altcoin prices and in Bitcoin prices. So if you didn't have exposure to any of these projects, now is a good time in a bull market to take advantage of a dip. But a lot of my community have been with me for quite a long time. I have quite a long-standing support, and that is because, as you know, from one of my YouTube channels is the Approachable Investor. So I try to be as approachable as possible, and I'm always answering questions for them. I do a lot of educational videos. So one thing I have is my podcast, which the main reason I did that was to bring experts on from all over the world, because I used to make videos of just me explaining key concepts. And what I realized is that I'm only one person. I have quite a broad knowledge, but I'm not an expert in everything. So I bring in these experts in all different subjects, from the stock market to farming to nuclear to crypto to Bitcoin to deep down in the weeds of certain ecosystems as well in crypto. And I bring them on, and it allows my community to be a lot closer and be able to get information that is far more possible than to get from one man.
Yeah. No, I definitely get you on that, Definitely get you on that. Because, like, as an investor, one of the most important things I think you have to know is understanding what you don't understand.
Yeah.
And accepting that it's like that, and this is where my comment on ignorance comes in, right? Like understanding your own ignorance and then allowing those ignorance to be filled by people that know more about and understand more, and then obviously make your own decisions. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, the person that's putting the money at risk is yourself. So you have to make your own decisions. If you're able to talk, discuss, and understand, because I agree with you that when you see the market drop, a lot of people are like panicking, and there is fear. As an investor, when you're seeing the S&P 500 up 10%, and it was like, wow, if I had just sold last week, I would be 10% richer. But the reality is not that. The reality is, like you say, you got to take advantage of those moments and say, okay, this is harvest season. When the markets are in all-time highs, it's harvest season, and then when the diamonds are in all-time lows, it's planting season. So you need to be able to have those targets and say, okay, like what are the companies that I'm paying attention to? What are the companies that I want to potentially buy? Oh, Palantir, really good company. At 120, too expensive. But at 60, we start talking. So that's where it becomes really interesting. Many new investors have to learn this. It's like, hey, take into consideration that the market has risk. Money can go up and money can come down, but you can also buy at lows, So I definitely take that on.
I agree with you. I also just want to say on that as well, is I can always tell how long people have been investing and how much they understand the markets, because one of the common side effects of the market is knowing just a little bit, for people that know just a little bit about the markets, is they tend to talk in absolutes, right? So they say, is the market going to go up next week, or is it going to go up next month, or will it go up in 2025 or whatever? And it's the wrong way of phrasing the question. So the way I always try and teach my community and talk when I talk with people that are less familiar with investing is it's about probabilities. Yeah. So you attach probabilities to certain outcomes on whether it might happen, and then you invest your money accordingly, depending on the weight of your confidence on that particular bet. But to say, is it going up next year? Is it going down next year? There's too many scenarios.
Who knows? You know what I found? The person that guarantees you the market's going to go in the direction that they say, I guarantee you they want to take your money. Yeah, that's the only guarantee I have in the stock market. If you guarantee me that the market's going to go up and I'm going to make 1,000% every single day for the rest of eternity, that guy wants to take your money. That is the only truth I know. Yeah. So I love that. I love that you're telling me that, like the right things, the correct things. It tells me you're a very good investor. You know what you're doing. You understand the risks. You understand the values. As an investor, you have to go through the trenches in order to live them, And you have to go through bear.
And we love risks as well, Nesta, because if there wasn't risks, everything would be market neutral, right? And we wouldn't be able to make any money, right? You've got
Scare money, make no money.
Be able to embrace risk, and you need to be able to assess risk to be an investor. And the money is made from assessing the risks.
Agreed. And if you can't sleep at night, you have way too much money in the markets. That's the way that I find it. It's very true. Okay. So we have this thing, at the end. Any other things you want to talk about? Like I'm going to open up the floor to you. Anything you want to share with the community. So I know that you have your 2 YouTube channels. If you want to plug them, you can say. I'll put the links of everything that you mentioned here in the description below for anybody to follow you and make sure to.
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned. So I have 2 things, right? So I have a channel on YouTube called The Approachable Investor. And the main reason is for anyone that is involved in copy trading. Obviously, I have an account, Bees84 on eToro, and I have my own portfolio in which people copy my trades and are invested in me. And it used to be every week. It's been a bit less recently, but I do basically explain how things have been going with my portfolio, and I also sometimes do like quarterly meetings with other popular investors. So that's one channel, which is eToro specific. The other channel is called Achieving Alpha, which I set up just about 10 months ago now, and that is, as I mentioned, to interview some of the best people in the industry whether they are hedge funds managers or whether they are Bitcoin experts or uranium experts, farming experts, you name it. I've had them all on the show. And that's just a great piece of knowledge, really. So it's an extra piece of knowledge for people to understand more about the markets, being able to link with some quite famous names in the industry and to be able to learn more. So it's a education type tool. So yeah, I recommend if you haven't already, that's a good channel to subscribe to.
Perfect, for sure. We'll make sure to share all of the links at the bottom, and make sure to even if you're not gonna copy, make sure to look at the make sure to look at our portfolios on eToro, because you can get all of the information all of the positions that we buy. That's the beautiful thing about eToro, is the fact that you have an open book, you know what people are buying, what the top investors in the platform are doing, and you don't have to do anything. You can just go in, buy, and it doesn't cost you anything, So
and more importantly, the results and everything is totally transparent. There's nothing you can hide there, because what you'll see a lot on YouTube and X and other social media platforms is people will only post the good stuff. They'll say, oh, I made this much last week, or I've closed this trade at a squillion% profit. Yeah. And the good thing about eToro is everything's backed up, right? You see the good, the bad, the ugly. You see the good trades, see the bad trades, and then the trades that are on water. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. So episode done. This is just the quick fire round. So this is just gonna be quick and easy. Whatever comes to mind, quick and easy. Don't spend too much. Just one or two sentences.
Okay.
One or two sentences. Are coin securities?
Are altcoin securities?
Yeah.
Some of them.
Okay.
No, let me take that back a little bit. Most of them are securities. There are coins which have some properties which don't make them securities, but a lot of proof of stake coins are securities.
Okay.
If you apply the Howey test to them.
Okay. So you're playing that card. Okay. All right. So is Bitcoin digital gold?
Yes.
All right. It's easy. Is Bitcoin dead?
No. Just started.
Is it just started? Wow. Yeah. I'm in the same boat. The big question goes: is Ethereum dead? You've answered this in the podcast, but
I've answered it. I think there's big risks attached to it. Other ones are taking up more of its market share, and unless things start to change, it could be in danger.
Okay, is Solana the Ethereum killer?
It's making good momentum to be. I also, I'm very positive, as I said, about SUI. So I think SUI could be a while off. I'm not saying they're going to take over in this cycle. They're not. But I think over a couple of cycles, Solana and SUI are real candidates to take over from.
So they better watch their lunch. Okay, perfect. And then last question for many cryptocurrency investors. Where should you keep your coins?
You should keep your coins in cold storage. This is extremely important. We've seen exchanges being hacked by the North Koreans, all sorts of different groups that hack exchanges. And if you're extremely lucky, they might have enough in reserves to be able to make everybody whole. But as we know from FTX, that's not always the case. And they're not always backed one-to-one. So the best thing to know is not your keys, not your Bitcoin. So if you can, put everything in cold storage, because you can still access it when you want and put it back onto exchanges, but you don't have that counterparty risk that you have when you're doing it with a company. And also be careful of the companies as well that provide you yield for storing for the Bitcoin.
Yeah,
that is
very true.
If
there is yield, there is risk. That's if you're making money, there is risk. You don't make money. That's simple.
Yeah,
always.
And you're being paid for that risk. So there's a reason why you get 5%, 6%, 7% yields, because there's a risk.
Okay.
And
the last question.
Okay. But a lot of people just think I'm putting my money there and I'm just getting.
And it's guaranteed.
A yield.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed. Yeah.
Like I said in the podcast, if it's guaranteed, they're guaranteed to steal your money.
Agree.
And then the last question that everybody wants to know, and you might know the answer to this: Do you know who Satoshi is?
I don't know who he is, but I would put it down to about 4 to 5 candidates, because it has to be somebody who has the knowledge of developing, had to be involved in kind of cryptography stuff in the very early days, had to be involved in those forums, cryptography forums. So I'd put it down to maybe 4 or 5 candidates. I personally think if I had to hazard a guess, I'd probably say it was Adam Back. But that's just my.
You're first, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first. Awesome. That's great. That's awesome. Any other questions you want to ask me?
No. I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Thanks, Nestor.
Oh, for sure. Thank you so much. And yes. Okay, awesome.